AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 188. I am your executive editor, Ryan McQuade. Joining us today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello, everyone.
And Nicole Ackman.
Hello, hello.
It's just the three of us this week. It's not like a big crowd. I think it's because everybody that was on last week that did the big Best Picture ranking episode, everybody's still sleeping. It was a long episode. We broke it up into 2 episodes, so I hope all you guys enjoyed that. We got a lot of good feedback on that, Erik. We really did.
Yeah, and because I was not able to be on it, I'm going to go through all 95 of my tier right now.
Oh, shit.
So
buckle up, folks. Did you agree with most of it?
I got sick, and there was no way that I was able to do it. But I wish so badly that I had been able to be on that double episode. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good listen, and it was really cool, and people liked it a lot.
Any complaints with the finalists or the things that were put in the top tier?
No, not really. Although maybe we should have just highlighted that in text, because
yeah, we should have.
That would be enough to get people riled up, because that's all they.
I have the photo still. We could put it up in the episode show notes if we wanted to.
I think that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. We can put that in episode 187. I'll send you the image. Nicole, did you listen to it? Were there any?
I have gotten through part of it, but not all of it.
That's fair. It was a long
5 hours.
It was a long episode. So.
But it was honestly, it was really interesting, just because, as y'all know, I've not seen all the Best Picture winners, but I'm working my way through them on a podcast series that my best friend Lex and I are doing for Oscar Central. So it's interesting to hear people's opinions on these films that I've been watching some of them for the first time. So
yeah, I had there are still some this week. I think about it, I was like, wow, we were way too nice on, or
yeah,
we were not mean enough, or we could have been harsher on, or whatever. But then there were also ones that I was like, oh, we should have bumped that one up a little bit. But
no, I would have been so mean to Casablanca.
Okay, I so appreciate. I think, Ryan, it was you who was championing Rebecca for me.
Yeah, me and
great
Sophia.
film.
The movie's awesome.
I really appreciate that. So
yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the fact that I was the lone defender on Return of the King, and I felt like the more and more I was thinking about that over the week, the more and more I was like, pretty much all the justification for Gone with the Wind and Titanic were used against me then for Return of the King, and I thought that was kind of messed up. And I will be sending cease and desist and lawsuits to everyone on that episode, but that's beside the point.
The real to avoid a lawsuit. Although
yeah.
I would have been on your side there. So
yeah, great movie. But speaking of, I guess, people that got lawsuits, the Golden Globes were in the news this past week.
That's never a good thing, by the way.
That's never a good thing, by the way, for them. But
there's nothing that comes after that that's like, oh, that's fantastic news.
Yeah.
Well, they were bought out this week by Penske, essentially, and by Dick Clark and
Dick Clark Productions. Yeah, it's not Penske specifically, but they are all
Penske adjacent.
The same umbrella now.
Yeah.
They're Dick Clark Productions and Todd Bowie Elridge. Yeah,
if it's raining, they're under the same umbrella, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big paradigm shift, because they were a non-profit that were getting a lot under the table, and now they are switching to be a for-profit. And the Hollywood Foreign Press Association no longer exists. What that means for its voting body, I guess Erik, you did the write-up for this on the website. I mean, are they essentially going to be the Golden Globes Association with this voting body now? And
I don't know if they're going to have a different name, but I mean, this really wasn't a huge surprise, because part of the restructuring post all of their controversies and wanting to change all of these things was to split the organization into 2 different things. the nonprofit, where they would do their philanthropy, and the for-profit, which would be the show. So that was already in place over a year ago. We just now have this that is like the finalization and the purchase of it. But in this process, there are 300 voting members now. But the difference is with this buyout, that kind of core 90-ish that were originally there, they're essentially paid employees now. They were grandfathered in. They are paid employees. The rest, all the 200 plus that were added, are not. They are still voters. They will all still vote on the awards, whatever they end up being. But they are very much two different entities. And it is strange that both are going to be voters.
Yeah. It's a really weird thing. I mean, obviously, from our standpoint, covering this, it adds a new wrinkle to the Golden Globes. I mean, if you didn't think that they mattered that much, I guess then I don't know, Nicole, if you feel like they matter less now, if they're being essentially employees and more for profit than they were before. But I mean, their reputation in the last couple of years has already tarnished them enough, right?
Right. It in some ways it sort of feels like and this sounds bad, but like, can their reputation sink lower? Like, can something like this sink them lower than they already were? Like, I feel like them turning into a for-profit organization with employees is not, as in any moral system, as bad as the other things that have happened to them, or that have happened within and everything. So I don't know. I'm interested to see. I sort of feel like it does. How do I put this? It does in some ways maybe remove a little bit of the sort of weird conundrum of like, okay, well, do I watch? Do I not? Like, if I'm watching, am I supporting this? The Hollywood Foreign Press Association? Like, what does all of that mean? So I feel like it puts it into an entirely new question. I'm curious how people in the industry in terms of like talent and their publicists and everything are going to view it now. I'm curious if they'll be able to sort of have the same star power that they've had in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's Erik and I were talking about this week. It's like, well, nobody can get mad at Netflix now because this looks 10 times. I think this is like, if anybody wrote any articles or said anything about how unprofessional Netflix looks, they look like complete hypocrites, in my opinion, for this. Yep. And
well, and to reference what you're talking about, we're talking about Netflix
with the
producer of the Screen Actors Guild Awards now. Yes. And a lot of people were side-eyeing that as
studio bias,
as like automatic favoritism and whatnot. And the great irony of this buyout and of what is happening moving forward with the Globes is they have had nothing but controversies of bribery and favoritism and all of these things, and now they've created a situation for themselves where every single major entertainment outlet is under the same umbrella as the Golden Globes, Variety, IndieWire, Rolling Stone, every Hollywood Reporter, all of them, they are all there. And does that mean that their coverage is going to be different? It's going to be constant. They are not going to go away. That solidifies that the Globes will not ever go away because they have a direct pipeline for coverage across multiple outlets. They just need to find someone to host them.
Yeah.
Because they still don't have that. They have a date, but they
probably
don't
have somebody to host them that won't.
And by host, I don't mean a person, I mean a network.
Yeah. Well, no, they don't have NBC this year, right?
No, that was a 1-year tryout last year, and they had their all-time lowest ratings ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all-time lows pretty much across the board for almost every award show, it feels like, because people aren't watching these things left and right. But I do agree with you, Erik. It's I don't think it'll be NBC, obviously, because if they wanted to, they would have already picked them up. It might be an ABC thing. It might be CBS. I mean, CBS does
it's very early. It could still be.
It could be.
NBC
I mean,
could just be like, all right, fine.
I mean, CBS they have the Tonys and they do the Emmys trade off with the other networks, so they could easily pick it up. I don't think ABC wants it because then it would. I don't know, because they have the Oscars. It feels like that to have both. I mean, like they're double dipping and.
Well, the thing with NBC is that they already had a contract to have the Globes, and it was a really big, expensive one. They backed out themselves. So it's probably mutually beneficial for them to continue with it. And I do think they probably will.
Yeah. But no, it'll be really fascinating. I mean, obviously I agree with you. I think the trades will start hyping up the Globes like nothing's matter, or, they're new and there'll be an inside article written by someone who's, an awards editor at a site over there and at one of those places about I have the inside scoop and da. But also, it is, weirdly with this, we'll be able to maybe see some changes. Hopefully, I mean, it doesn't seem like it because, like you said, Erik, the 90 core people are employees, but then the new people that are brought on for diversity and inclusion and everything, they're not. So we don't know if that'll change. I mean, maybe it does over the next year or so. Over this first year, we won't know what their awards look like. Do they go back to being more of the crazy Globes? Do they go be more kind of down the middle, as the last two have kind of been more consensus with the rest of the award season? So we'll see about that. They are still the Globes, so that, they will have a party. They will have an award show somewhere because people love to drink and they love to show up, and it's the first time to give a speech, and those speeches can be beneficial to some and can be for maybe some chances that we didn't think about throughout the season. I mean, that was where we first got to see Michelle Yeoh have a speech. That's where we first got to see Ki Kwan have a speech. So last year and over the course of many other shows and whatnot, but it also just shows that at least some organizations, no matter how bad of a reputation that they have, they're willing to make changes instead of sitting on their hands. So
yeah, I don't see this as bad as I think some people did at first, because at first, yes, there were not enough details in the Globe's own press release of exactly how things were going to shake down. And, throughout the day, more bits of information came out. And yeah, I think that the Penske thing was worse than anything that they potentially might have had in mind, because people did not respond really positively to that part. Mm-hmm. And by people, obviously, I'm just talking about the sphere within, the industry that we talk about. Anybody that watches the Globes just to watch them, they don't know that, and they don't give a shit about it.
Yeah. We just, hopefully, because they're still in the process of change, that they can get better as an organization. I mean, this will be 2 years removed from being off TV and adding these new members. And obviously then Gerard Carmichael's opening last year was a very damning opening, because it wasn't very funny. It was just basically calling them out for 20 minutes at their party, which is
pretty classic Globes host thing to do. Yeah. That's kind of what's been,
they asked for it.
One of the fun things is that they're okay with it. They allow it. They kind of want it. Mm-hmm. And people enjoy it.
It wouldn't happen at the Oscars if this was a controversy.
It just wasn't that funny. I just wish it was funny.
No. Yeah. I mean,
I think Gerard Carmichael's really observationally very funny and really smart. And it just was it was it's not that it was missing punchlines. It was just missing anything other than
they're bad.
Yeah. It just wasn't creative.
No, it was just more searing than it was satirically searing them. If that makes sense. And and some people aren't the best at hosting either. So, it's not that.
Yeah, he certainly did not seem comfortable at all.
Yeah, at all. But we'll see who obviously hosts it later this year. They have a January date. What is it? The 24th of January?
No, the 7th. They're the first.
The 7th. Oh yeah, they're the first. That's
they're
right.
a week before Critics' Choice.
Yeah, and so
they're back on top.
They're back on top indeed. They'll be on some network, and they'll have.
I'm sure it'll be better than the CW. So.
Oh yeah, it'll be definitely better than the right before the infomercials for whatever Swiffer Mop is making the scene on the CW, and then after that reruns of the XFL or something. But anyway, we'll see. Anyway, moving on. There was a new release there were 2 new releases this weekend. One of them was The Flash. We're not talking about that because I didn't see it, and Erik didn't see it, and Nicole didn't see it. And
actually
looks like most people didn't see it.
Most people didn't see it. Well, Nicole, do you want to speak real quick about The Flash? Real quick, or you want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, I can say something real quick about it. Yeah. I saw it just because I am going to be writing a review of it for Oscar Central. I otherwise would not have gone to see it, especially because the Justice League sort of part of DC is not my thing. My biggest thing with it was that I really do think it is a really bad look that they went ahead and released this movie after what they have done to other projects that they decided not to release. The CGI in The Flash approaches like Cats level Uncanny Valley. It's
Jellicle?
frighteningly bad. I wish it was Jellicle. Oh, I wish it was like, you see, Cats is like the good side of like Uncanny Valley, where it's like amusing. Yeah. And this was the bad side, where it's like it's not even entertaining and being bad. I like the script is messy, and like I know that all the people who have gone to see it, which isn't even that many, who liked it, all they liked was that Michael Keaton was there. Like, and it's not even like it's a great role for him, so I really don't know why they're that excited about it. But I actually do think like it's been quite sad to see the downfall of whatever is going on with Ezra Miller, because they are an actor that I actually thought early on in their career, like I really liked what they were doing. And now I'm like, someone who's doing the things that they are in their personal life should not be booking roles and having entire films based around a character that they are playing. And with all of the bad CGI, I cannot believe that they didn't think to just like recast last minute, because they very clearly could have, because I'm convinced a lot of those people weren't in the same room together. Anyways, Grant Gustin Flash will always be Barry Allen. So if you're thinking about going to see it, I would highly recommend not, especially because I think it is one of those films. There are movies that like, oh yeah, they do play better in a movie theater. I think this movie might hurt your eyes slightly less if you watch it on a TV at home. So that's
fair. And you can like watch it from afar. So
exactly. Yeah.
It's not like
I actually think like illegally watching this movie is probably the like most moral thing that you could do if you want to see it. But
it's such a weird movie. It's such a weird movie too, because of the fact that like this movie is like at a weird spot where they want to separate for themselves from the DCEU and start James Gunn's new thing, but then it feels like all audiences have figured that out, so then they're not seeing this because like Black Adam failed and Shazam failed. Yep. And this is not doing well.
And this movie is just like cameos, the film.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they were saying like we could have put any cameo in the world, and I was like, that's not what people wanted out of like, and that's also not like a movie like Spider-Man No Way Home, which has cameos and things like that. That's not the point of that movie. Like the point of that movie is to be sort of a celebration of this entire character throughout the everything, and that's not what this movie ever looked like. It doesn't look like a celebration of this really dumb period of comic book movies that we got from Zack Snyder mostly. So
it is the epitome of just like cameo for the sake of cameo. Like
I did want to see it because of the new Supergirl.
She is great. She is like the only positive thing I really have to say about it, and I would love to see her get her own project. With the track record of DC right now, I'm not sure that I trust that.
You don't trust DC to let a female superhero movie get released?
I don't trust DC to tie their own shoes, quite frankly, but And that's not even like me being a Marvel girl. That's just me watching them like run things into the ground.
They self-imploded themselves. I mean,
Yeah,
between Batgirl and then kicking and firing Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman 3, like they've got a
yep,
great track record right now.
yeah,
You
they
know,
really do. The truly my biggest takeaway from it is that the cancellation of Batgirl feels even worse after watching The Flash.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely concerning also, and also smart move by nobody picking this up in the summer movie draft or
Yeah.
Blue Beetle later in the year in the summer.
I finally saw the preview for that while at The Flash, and I was like, are we sure this is a real film?
And then, I mean, only Jason Momoa can save us for Aquaman 2 if that's going to
Mm,
be a thing in the fall. That might end up being a bomb pick in the fall movie draft.
yeah.
But yeah, um, they're 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 struggling over there. And speaking of things that are struggling, so is Pixar. Pixar and Elemental.
Ouch.
If we thought that the Flash had a bad weekend, good lord, Pixar bad weekend. We're here to talk about Elemental briefly before we get into looking at the future of Oscars for this coming year. And usually when we're talking about the Oscars, we talk about Pixar a lot because Disney and Pixar usually dominates the animated film category, but I don't think that's going to be happening this year because of Across the Spider-Verse success critically and commercially. The movie's going to probably hit about $600-700 million. Gee, whichever team picked that, they're so smart. But anyway, Elemental exists, and Erik, you have got to see this a little bit before the rest of us, and you got to do some great interviews that are up over on the website at awardswatch.com.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, before we get into why and how this became the lowest grossing movie in Pixar's history, let's just talk about the film itself. What did you think of Elemental?
I really like it. I think the idea of a more, I guess, grown up romance is a neat idea for Pixar. It's still very, very kid oriented. I mean, it's very childlike humor, puns, and all of the very traditional and classic elements from Pixar. But even as fire and water, these are as anthropomorphized characters as you can really get visually from a Pixar film. They have a lot of very classic, maybe too classic styles of what a female looks like and what a male looks like, and that type of odd couple pairing, because essentially the girl is tiny and small and skinny, and the guy is large and a big doofus. So it's kind of really, it's very much leaning on very old tropes of romance, which I do wonder exactly how effective that was. Clearly not that effective, because I think people maybe were coming at this at who's the audience for this? Is it just kids? And are their parents, how do they feel about it? Because the parents of kids that are watching this aren't my age or older. They're going to be in their 30s or younger even. So I don't know. Maybe the idea was just a little too antiquated. But I thought it was visually a lot of fun. I thought the family element was extremely touching, especially the end. In fact, the whole last 10-15 minutes I think is pretty spectacular. But I think your mileage might vary on it if you don't think that it's earned it up to that point. That a good ending only is good if everything that's led up to it has earned it, I think, for some people. But I still really liked it.
Nicole, you saw it, right? Correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I liked it. I feel like my feelings on a lot of the recent Pixar releases are kind of like that Abby Lee Miller meme where it's like, you were good. I'm waiting for you to be great. I feel like Pixar hasn't been truly great in a while. And it's how I feel about this. I liked it. I was charmed by it. I thought that there were some interesting things with the animation. I keep waiting for Pixar to like hit a wall and not be able to go farther with their like, what if this had feelings? But what if Elements had feelings? Is truly one I didn't see coming. I think that, I like the way in which all of it is clearly a metaphor for like immigration and cultures meeting. And I do think that like if you think about it too hard, it stops working somewhat. Especially if you think about the fact that like, okay, but these different cultures can like are literally physically dangerous to each other. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. But yeah, but I liked the world. I honestly wanted to see a little bit like more of the world of Element City because I was so fascinated by it. And I feel like we didn't actually get to see that much. But I liked the sort of getting to see both their families. I thought the romance was cute. I'm always down for a like, grumpy black cat girlfriend, sunshiny golden retriever boyfriend vibe. And that is what this was giving. I also really do like, I think it's cool to see like a male love interest whose like whole thing is that like he is, very over emotional about everything because I feel like that is not something that you see a lot in these kids' movies. So that's an interesting aspect. Um, I do wonder for like little kids if like so much of this film sort of revolves around like a business getting shut down because of inspector violation things. Like, there's a part of me that's like, do kids care? Do they even understand what that really means? Like, and so again, I do feel like the question is, it doesn't quite feel mature enough for an adult audience in the way that something like Across the Spider-Verse feels mature enough for an adult audience, or even something like, a Cartoon Saloon production or something like that. Um,
or even previous Pixar stuff, to be
Right,
fair.
or even some Pixar stuff. But it also doesn't feel like it's quite on the level for kids. Like, so it leaves you in sort of a weird place with it. The kids that I was sat next to, because I was sat next to a family with 3 children, and they were up and out of their seat, and it did not keep their attention at all. Like the dad had to leave with 2 of them at one point because, and they were, I would guess, like 3 through 6, maybe.
Walkouts at a kids movie, my God.
Walkouts at Elemental. Yeah, he said I can't see this anymore. No, but I wish they'd given us a little bit more about these cultures, and especially I feel like it was very focused obviously on like the water and the fire people, and I wanted like a little bit more and a little bit more in terms of creativity. Like I thought whenever they went to his house with his family and you see that like the like whole room is like a pool. I was like, okay, well, where's the equivalent of that for the other elements? So I just wanted like a little more world building because I thought that that was the most interesting thing that they were doing with it. But it is a good point, Eric, that you make about like this is sort of going to be more the first like older romances really that we've seen that's not between like teenagers in a Pixar type of movie. I feel like typically you don't find those that often in children's media. So that's nice that they're like proper adults falling in love. But and the whole thing about we've seen so much media lately about children of immigrants and what that means and what kind of expectations that places upon you and how do you sort of break out of that. And I thought that this was a very sort of simplistic take on that without the nuance of being put into a specific culture, like something like Turning Red. But it's still a nice story to be telling. I found myself wishing that there was sort of more to it, even though like I enjoyed watching it. I didn't dislike it.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull an Eric Anderson here. It's fine. Elemental, it's fine. This movie, like, I agree with everything Nicole just said. You turn on your brain just a little bit for this movie, and it starts to fall apart. The world building is obviously very simplistic. Its animation is not even near the level of not just Spider-Verse, but their other films that they've had come out the last couple of years, like Luca and Turning Red. Clearly, better animated films, story-wise, better films. I liked Lightyear more than most people last year, and I would say that even that movie is trying to do something different, trying to, even with a kind of, it's such a weird complication that movie is, but it at least is trying to provide us something new, even with what we perceive as an audience, the character that we've known for like 20 years. And this is a fine romance. It's fine. It's very surface level. Fire and water can't coexist. Oh, will they touch hands? Will they won't? Oh no, what will happen if they do? When they touch, will the water boil and will their hearts explode? Okay, cool. Yeah, I get that. It's no different than anything I've seen that Disney's ever done before. It's clearly not even the best romance they've ever done, because that's WALL-E by a country mile. And
that old chestnut.
That old chestnut, a masterpiece from them, and apart from their golden era. And I think the ultimate thing that I watch this movie and I think of is, oh yeah, this is from the chief creative officer, that is Pete Docter. And the problem I have with Pete Docter movies is that he's all about the ideas, and everything's on like Soul and Inside Out. They're all ideas. But for me, they never stick the landing emotionally enough and actually say more than surface level things and use emotions and MacGuffins to manipulate our emotions by the end. So it's, yes, those 10 minutes at the end, they're very, very emotional. And they've been sort of dropped in there like little seeds, right? And you don't think that they're there, but that's what every Pixar movie does. They drop the seeds in there. That's their formula. Why does the Turning Red moment, when they're across the two worlds, when they meet in the middle, when her mom's turned into the big monster, why does it all matter when it gets surface level? Why does Dan Romer's score make Erik cry like a baby at the end of Luca at the train? You know what I mean? Because the seeds have been dropped throughout the film. And yet
Human score, though, in Elemental is great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
What a pairing. Should have happened a decade ago.
But this is also, like, I feel Doctor's influence on this. It does feel like this movie has that kinship, and a lot of audiences set this early on. It's like, oh, we're just doing Inside Out again, which that doesn't feel very creative. And I think also too, while the romance is the strongest thing, Erik and I talked about this offline, there's another element to this movie of Ember's wanting to be something more than just the daughter of an immigrant family and taking over the family business. She wants to be able to become this creative artist and genius and whatever with glass. And the problem is that there is no development of the idea of that being a profession. There's no progression of her as a character enough to see from maybe a young age that she had this gift, or in that maybe it got suppressed because of her father's expectations. It's all,
no, we know she can, make glass out of stuff, and it's great, but
that feels like something that they can all do.
She's only and she's only done it as something that is reparative. It's so rare. The only time we get that window is when she makes the vase at Wade's house, which is wonderful. It's beautiful, and the idea is great, but it's not actually something that's fostered as a major B story. And
they also completely drop the sort of parallel story of him not knowing what he wants to do. I feel like that just sort of gets like shuffled to the side and not resolved.
He's just like, I'll be dumb for you.
Right. Well, and I feel like they had introduced something interesting with this idea of like, he's been given the freedom to do whatever he wants to do and he can't find anything. Whereas she's been shuffled towards this one thing her whole life and is afraid to step away from that. And they could have resolved it in a nice way, I feel like. But instead, it just kind of comes out of nowhere for her with like, oh, here's this other career that you are suddenly insanely gifted at. It's giving like strong female character from the early 2010s.
And it's
and
a little weird.
We completely lose the idea of him doing anything.
Yeah, but he's also, the stand-in for, a rich white kid that has never had to do anything. He just has really,
Yep.
thoughtful parents. And essentially, she is also given the opportunity by his mother. So
yep.
There isn't really much. Again, it's not fostered as like this has been her passion and her drive and her ambition. It's a much stronger. They send a much stronger message that not running the store is like her main thing, because she says it so many times.
Yep.
No, that's what she wants to do when she's a young little fire.
I mean, it just feels like a way to write themselves out of a hole of giving her this massive anxiety that, balls up this emotion that she combusts, and then that's how Wade enters her life. But, I think that I agree with Nicole. I think like the other elements in the film are not really fully tapped in and realized. I don't think that we don't see the other worlds. We don't, and this is,
no, they're single jokes. Basically, there's the little kid Claude, who actually is really funny, and his whole flower armpit thing was absolutely hilarious. But it's one joke, and then the apple's like picking each other's tree. It's one joke. That's it. There's nothing.
I feel like it really suffers from what a lot of Pete Docter movies suffer from, if you ask me, which, like Inside Out, it would be better as a short. And it has been stretched into this full-length film without like enough actual world building or plot to put it there. So it feels like everything is sort of like patched together, because the idea really could only sustain what could have been like a really good short film. Because that's totally how I feel about Inside Out. Like, it's a great concept, but it's hard to make it last for a full-length film. And this movie, like, I don't know why Elemental felt so long to me, because I know it's only like an hour and 50 minutes, but I was like, oh, we're still going.
And what is Spider-Verse? Like 2 hours and 15 minutes or
220.
something? And that movie just flies?
I think it's the longest American-made animated film ever, and it flies by.
And the director of this, Erik, correct me on the last name, Peter Sohn. He's made one of the lesser Pixar films of all time, by some people's estimation, The Good Dinosaur, a movie that I don't think is that bad, and don't think is as terrible as people say it is.
It's cute.
It's definitely
fine.
It's very fine, but again, like you feel the influences of Docter as a creative decision maker here more than you do on some, because it's their first a more original, I would say, than even Lightyear film that they're going back to the theatrical window. And that's where I think the other thing falls kind of like a fault for this movie is that this movie felt like a movie that was for Disney Plus, not Turning Red, not Luca. I don't think that the animation of this movie is particularly on the level of things that they've done in the past. And the problem is, and this is not a problem of Pixar, this is just a problem of time, but it really suffers from being in a summer where, after you've seen Across the Spider-Verse and you see the invention and the creativity going and just thrown at the big screen behind this for a movie that's made for half the budget of this, and then you see this film, which is shorter and but 2 times as expensive, and you go, wait a minute, I'm supposed to always walk into a Pixar movie and at least be wowed by certain sequences. And there's one sequence in here I think that I was wowed by, but that's usually multiple sequences.
Is it the flower?
No one. Which one? The
in Elemental? What are you talking about?
Well, I think there's a sequence where Ember is walking under the train back home, and the water kind of is surfaced around her, and she wants to touch it underneath it's like the subway. I think that's really elegant and really beautiful. Kind of hint on a little bit of that throughout. But ultimately, like it's just not their strongest effort, and that's really what really hurts, because like they have now, with a $30 million opening for a $200 million movie here domestically, they have essentially dug themselves such a hole that they're going to be forced to make a Toy Story 5 or an Incredibles 3 or a Finding Nemo 3 to get their audiences accustomed back to going to the theaters, because there's no way a sequel to one of their established franchises would ever just go straight to Disney Plus. Because, and yes, obviously Soul had to go there because every film went there for the pandemic, but they were like, Luca and Turning Red are on our streaming platform, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that is a creative decision that is now haunting them. I don't know if Luca or Turning Red would have made a ton of money, but I think that they would have made more money than just going on a streamer. And they probably would have made more money than this, because you look at Turning Red, that's a comedy. And you look at Luca, there weren't many animated options, I believe, that summer either. And it's the first Pixar movie coming back from the pandemic. So they had that going for them. They've lost a lot of momentum. And I am worried going forward, because I think, isn't their next film like that one about like the kid and he's from a different planet, or is that a Disney movie or something like that? I don't know what didn't they already have like a trailer for their next film that's coming out next year or something like that?
Are you Pixar? Disney or Pixar?
Pixar.
Wish?
No, Wish is the Ariana DeBose one, but no, wasn't the one where like the kid says he's like the
yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? It came out this week.
Yeah.
Is that Pixar?
What's his name? Like, oh my God, it's just a first name with an E, not like Elio, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it is Elio, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, it's Elio,
something
right?
Like that?
Because we were all like, oh, they're just continuing their Call Me by Your Name, Elio, right? Yeah, it's Elio.
Okay, it is.
And that's Pixar, and that's 2024. Elio struggles to fit in until he is transported by aliens and becomes the chosen one to be Earth's galactic ambassador, while his mother, Olga, works on the top secret project to decode the aliens' messages.
It looks cute, but it's probably overcomplicated. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about like Luca Turning Red and going to directly to the streamer. Yes, this was during the pandemic era when they had to have a place for their content. It was also the prime era for new subscribers for things like Disney Plus and HBO Max and all of these streamers that were like, this is our shot. And it was pretty successful, especially for Disney Plus. So I'm not sure that they necessarily regret the choice to not give major theatrical releases to those films, because they also needed that section to flourish and to give them a huge influx of cash.
True, but they also, with their Marvel films and look at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, they did at least a day and date simultaneous release of, you could go to the theaters, you could also watch it at home. They did not give that option for those films. Period. They were exclusive for Disney Plus, and that then trains your audience to say, well, then these movies don't matter enough to be seen on the big screen, then therefore I'm just going to wait until they're at home.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then that's what happened with Lightyear. Well, besides a bunch of other controversy that happened behind the scenes with, terrible people. And then this is a prime example of like a movie like this is exactly like Kevin Lee. I love him. I'm going to call him out because this is exactly to his point. When we were trying to decide what we were going to pick for our last film, Kevin wanted to pick this. I obviously wanted to pick The Meg 2. And his reasoning was sound arguments. A movie like this came out early in the last decade, and it was something like Inside Out. And it was in the middle of summer. It did not matter what was coming out. It didn't matter if there was the biggest franchise in the world. Pixar owned that slate and was going to make $700 million. And it was going to own it, and then it was going to take that momentum, and it was going to go all the way to win the Oscar. And this movie doesn't have that. And why is that? Because there's no urgency to see this movie on the big screen, as opposed to, like, I mean, you look at some of these lesser animated films that have come out. You look at like the Despicable Me movies, or you look at Super Mario, for example, this year. They only went theatrical. And you look at also, I mean, the benefit of being a Spider-Man property, but also this cinematic event of the year that was Across the Spider-Verse, and people calling it one of the best films of the year, if not the best film of the decade so far.
Halfway through the year, so
you know what I mean. So people were going crazy for it, and you got to see it. You got to see it. You got to see it. Nobody said that, and then the tepid response out of Cannes, that didn't help either. You know what I mean? It's not looking good for Indiana Jones either, for that matter. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's troubling to see where they're going to go. But I will say I am looking forward to Elio for one reason. Is because Adrian Molina is directing that, and he directed Coco. He was one of the co-directors on Coco. So Coco was probably their, well, Luca does exist, and Luca's a very good movie. But last great film I would say from Pixar is Coco, the movie that
the last, at least widely acclaimed, great film. And I do genuinely think part of that is the Disney Plus of it all.
Yeah.
For Luca. But yeah, Coco is peak Pixar, if you ask me. Yeah, so you know, Coco. we'll keep our expectations at least middling.
I am sad though, because I mean, I'm not a big Up fan, but the short at the beginning of the film, I was like, that's the best part of my whole experience going to the theater.
Yep.
It was.
I hated it.
Well, you hate dogs and you hate old people.
Up. I mean, no, I'm not in the first 10 minutes. Sorry, that's my whole.
Man, I'm not a big fan of Up anyway, but I thought the short was like.
I thought it was cute. It fit the vibe of what I was about to watch. It's fine. You know. Well, that's Elemental. If you want to see it, you can. I mean, there's plenty of tickets available. Well, that was the other thing too. I've been looking at all the movies that have been coming out, seeing like the Thursday night, Friday night screenings, and this movie for most of my screenings in town, and we got a lot of theaters in town. It was one screen, one theater, each place. I mean, The Flash took everything. Spider-Verse still had a ton of stuff. Transformers 2. Like, I was blown away by the fact that, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised it made 30 million, because it didn't have that many theaters, it looked like, it seemed, even in my area. So it was very limited options. Now, my theater was sold out, but you know, it was also Thursday night it was Friday night at 6 p.m. So
see, my theater was not sold out, and I went to a Saturday 4:15 showing, which for a kids film should have been busy.
Eric, how was your screening experience? Did you see it with the normies?
No, I did not.
Where did you see it at?
I saw it the night before the interview, so I saw it with just press.
Wow, fancy. Not a man of the people.
And stuff. Right. Oh my god. Press or people.
Wait, you didn't want to sit with the normies? No.
I don't like watching kids movies with kids. No.
That's fair. That's very fair. That's why I went to the Draft House. I went to the Draft House and watched it there.
Before I started doing any of this, when I would go see like an animated movie, I'd go see like a 10 p.m. screening, because I want to avoid children as much as possible.
We went to.
To be fair, when I'm analyzing a kid's film, sometimes I'm like, I do want to see it in a screen of kids, so I can get a read on how the kids are reacting to it. That's like fair. I had kids in my Little Mermaid screening both time I've gone, who were just eating it up, like. And so then for these kids in Elemental to be like literally, at one point I looked over and one of the kids was turned like backwards in their seat. Like they were so uninterested. I was like, oh damn.
I mean,
my favorite kids at a screening was Babe Pig in the City, though, because the parents had no idea what the movie you like, and the movie, if you've seen it, is extremely scary and violent.
It's a messed up movie for PG.
Children screaming at the top of their lungs when that poor little crippled dog is like shucked from that car and just rolling. These kids were absolutely freaking the fuck out. I loved it.
I just need to make sure everyone is aware that Erik just said my favorite experience with kids in a screening is when they were screaming in fear.
From the director of Mad Max Fury Road. Comes Pig in the City.
If I was ever on the actor studio and when he gets to the point, you know, what do you want, you know, to hear at the pearly gates and what's your favorite sound? I'm like, children screaming.
God, if heaven exists, what does God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
No kids allowed.
No kids allowed. Get out of here.
Let's go.
Yeah, the kids resort is over there. No, go see Elemental if you want. Probably just go see Spider-Verse instead. It's a better movie. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit. I know everyone's gonna dread this, but it is kind of at the halfway point of the year. We're getting close to that, and so it's our first chance to start looking at the Oscars. Oh no, I said the bad word. But it's our bread and butter here, and Erik's been already doing predictions up on the website for the last 2 months, I believe.
No, just month. I haven't done my June yet, and it's already June 18th.
You procrastinator.
I'm so lazy.
Well, we'll get to it. You'll get to it because you know, I know all of our listeners and readers out there want to know your.
We're in a post-Can era now, so
yeah, it's big.
You know, I can look at my predictions from last month, which were all done the week before Cannes, and see where those winners might go.
Start looking. Well, we might as well start talking about the first half of the year, and we'll do Elemental and The Flash as the cutoff point, and I don't think we'll be having those films in a Best Picture race. But we can at least talk about some films that have come out maybe either at festivals early in the year, that have built buzz and have already been released, or some theatrical films that have maybe had the chance to, you know, have that cross appeal. I mean, obviously last year at this time, we had films that would then go on to be nominated, and that would be things like Elvis and Top Gun Maverick, and then of course our Best Picture winner, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's 3 films out of 10. That's 30% of the lineup coming from the first half of the year. So that's pretty big and significant, including having a 7-time Oscar winner on your hands there. Now, Erik, I mean, you've kind of started looking at this already. Is there a film maybe on that you're keeping your eye on early on as the film that could carry from the early part of the year all the way to, when is that going to be, February, when our announcements are next year for the nominees? Good Lord, that's
no, I think it's still end of January.
January, early February.
Early March is the show.
Okay.
Well, I mean, to your point, that's why there's no such thing as too early predictions.
Yeah.
As last year absolutely showed us. I mean,
what's the
point? What's the point? Yeah, of you know, starting Oscar predictions in like November once we've already have very established contenders and things to talk about. So I always push back against, why are you doing predictions in June? I'm like, then just don't listen
or don't read.
Just don't. It's fine that you don't like it, but
they will anyway because they're
whatever.
Yes. You know,
yeah, we do have a couple of things that are.
Well, just say one. How about one? So then you don't take everybody's picks.
Oh, just including festival releases?
I mean, sure. I mean, we're going around about this. I want Nicole to be able to say
obviously
something.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Well, you haven't seen that, have you?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But it's been seen.
That's true. So your thoughts on its chances at this point? Is it our front runner right now across the board?
I have it, and I probably still will for June in my number one slot, but my predictions are nomination status, not like winner status. Like, people are such weirdos also about that too.
Well, I think people presume that these right now are for the
winners,
and it's like you can't predict a winner a year and a half advance or whatever.
You can still do that. That's fine. Yeah. But I think something like Killers, because this has been gestating for 2 whole seasons now, because it was a part of predictions last year as well.
Yeah.
There's few reasons to presume that it's not going to be able to play extremely well with the Academy in a Gangs of New York kind of way of getting tons and tons and tons of nominations. So at this point,
Irishman.
there's no reason. Yeah, or Irishman. I don't see a reason why not to. It's going to get a real theatrical release with Apple and Paramount Pictures. It's got October release date. It will show up at least one of the fall festivals to kind of help secure that. So yeah, why would it not be, in that place? Because it's also a incredible, intense subject matter. And Lily Gladstone.
Yes, Lily Gladstone, as well as also reports of Leo and De Niro's great performance.
Sure, all those people are in it too. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people that have worked with Marnie forever, but also Lily Gladstone getting universal praise. Obviously, if you want to cry, go read the Deadline piece that the interview that Scorsese did, and especially knowing that every film could be, sadly, and I'm not trying to be mean, but could be the last one that we ever get from them, because he is 80, and it's just the truth. I'm not trying to be.
That could be the
mean.
case for anybody.
Yeah, it could be the case for anyone.
Well, I mean, especially when he's reflecting on the end of his career already. It seems like.
Yeah, and the end of his career, he's now getting to make $200 million movies without the worry of box office or the worry of anything else other than doing exactly what he wants.
Cool. Good for him.
I
think he's earned it. If anyone's earned it too.
Sure.
But yeah, it premiered out of Cannes. It was actually one of the highest reviewed positive out of Cannes, even with being out of competition. Because he's so scared, as Ruben Östlund would say, to compete. Idiot. But sorry, state Ruben Östlund. But anyway, Nicole, is there a movie from the first half of the year maybe that you've seen, haven't seen, that you were thinking that could have the chance to get nominated for a good old Best Picture?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I haven't seen that I think you can't ignore that they're going to be in contention. I feel like you might talk about one of them. So I'm going to leave you the one that I think you're going to talk about. I will also mention, anytime you have a Wes Anderson, there's a chance. I don't think Asteroid City is getting in, but it's one of those things where it has to go in your long list of, it's Wes, so who knows. I'm finally seeing Asteroid City whenever it opens here on this coming Thursday. I'm very excited.
Me too.
But the only thing that I've seen that I think could make it anywhere near Best Picture, and I'm not exaggerating, I just went through my Letterboxd list. The only thing that has a hell of a chance, I think, is Across the Spider-Verse. And I don't necessarily think that's happening. It's a sequel film. It's the middle of a trilogy. I do think it has a very good chance at winning animated film. And I do think in a year of 10, if there's nothing else sort of in the realm of, IP, of family entertainment that sort of arises, because this year we don't have a Top Gun or an Avatar or something like that. That's sort of big family entertainment. I know that we have Mission Impossible coming, but I don't feel like that has the same sort of wide appeal. So maybe it squeaks into a 9th or 10th place if people can keep the love for it going, because like we said earlier, it is the one movie that I have heard, other than the one that I think Ryan is going to talk about, that I have heard people saying thus far, best movie of the year, whatever. And I think that there is such love for the team who've worked on it, and a feeling that they should be rewarded for the fact that they're pushing boundaries in film. That maybe, I don't know, it's with an animated film, it's always a hard bet, but of everything I've seen, it's the only thing I could even imagine getting in that I wouldn't be how?
We got to have a multiverse movie in there now, because they make.
Well, yeah, that's actually a new rule for the Academy.
It's definitely good of the multiverse films this year. It's definitely the one that would get in. I think that's not far off. I mean, it's one of the best reviewed films of the year. It's a box office success. I mean, talking about a film that has already passed how much its original made, at least domestically, and I think internationally too. It's on the pace to get maybe $650 million, which is huge for that movie. It's again also one of the best reviewed films of the year. It's people are still watching it, going back to the theaters. You're right, Nicole. It's one of those where it could fill the big budget entertainments. We do have a bunch of those still coming out. I mean, I think Barbie and Oppenheimer kind of count for that as well, as those big budget films. And then also there's Dune and some other things. But if those don't particularly land with the Academy, I mean, something like this could. I am hesitant as you are with it getting in there, because like movie that was one of the best films of last year and universally praised and won every animated prize was Pinocchio, and that didn't even get in. And that's from somebody that's won a Best Director Oscar and a Best Picture Oscar and things of that nature. But I do also see like the potential of it being like what Inside Out could have done, which was Inside Out got animated feature and it got screenplay. The score for Across the Spider-Verse is insane. The sound and with the fixed sound work and everything, that could help too. I think that what helped a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Top Gun and Elvis and those movies last year was movies like Killers of the Flower Moon, Leaving the Race, and some of those films then that we thought would be big contenders falling apart during the season. So it's very much a film that I think you have to keep on your long list, as well as like you're saying with Asteroid City, because we found out this week that Henry Sugar from Netflix is not going to be a theatrical, or it's not a feature length, it's a short. There are 4 different shorts, so it won't be another feature film from Wes Anderson. So you will only have the one this year, though it's doing well, and it's like per screening with like 6 screens so far. But those are numbers that like whatever. I think those are very targeted, specific screens and like places that people really, really want to see a movie like that. I think the film for me obviously I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, and I'm a little skeptical, but of the films from the first half of the year that I think I see this as a potential slot, and then winner, maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to call a winner or anything, but I think Celine Song's Past Lives is a movie that I haven't seen one person give a negative review to that movie. And I have seen the 3 negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm just going to say those are the most convoluted ways to say that you don't like a really great movie I've ever seen on Rotten Tomatoes. It gives very one person who didn't like Lady Bird, or the one person, or like Armand White not liking a movie, so like The Godfather, so then he puts it at 99%. It gives off that kind of vibes. But I mean, especially for it being such a personal film, being the debut of the year most likely, I don't know of a movie that has taken a hold of not just the internet but critics and I think creatives that have seen it too. It's a really powerful, strong film. The cast is insane. The score is fantastic. The cinematography, editing, all of it's great. But I mean, obviously that script and her direction is it's that of somebody that has felt like she's been around for a long, long time, and this is just her debut. I mean, Eric, I know you've seen it. You saw it before I did. You had the great interview with her and star Greta Lee. It's a very, very special film. I am nervous about, I know A24 put so much effort in the last year. And then there have been years where I've wanted them to push a movie so much and then it's never happened. And so I still have a little bit of like, oh, I don't know if I can trust you all the way. But it feels like this will be their film, along with they have Zone of Interest, I believe, as well too, the Jonathan Glazer film.
Yeah, that's top 5 for me.
Yeah, those are 2 films that I think that are their priority. And I mean, last year showed that they can juggle multiple films. I mean, they had that, and they had
last year showed that they couldn't get a second Best Picture nomination, even though they won every single acting award, and including Best Actor, without a Best Picture nomination for the first time since 2009. That drove me nuts. I was like, what does it take for A24 to get 2 damn movies in Best Picture?
Yeah, that is fair. But at the same token, though, I mean, they got essentially almost everything they wanted without that Best Picture nomination. You know what I mean?
They're not hurting. They're
not hurting. You know what I mean? They still, I mean, they got that 5th nomination, also an actor, for Paul. So like that's also a big win for them too. Marcel and animated, like they had a very, 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 very good year last year. And will they be able to repeat it again? Because they do have a massive slate of films again this year. And from the first half, I mean, obviously they did not, Past Lives is a special film because of the Sundance films. It was one of the very few that did not premiere on the digital platform. They're trying to get people to see this in the theater as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, she's pretty much like, I hate saying locks or shoo-ins, but she's shoo-ins for at least nominations across the board for debut director everywhere.
She'll do pretty well there. Song will do pretty well there. And the movie is also in its limited release box office doing extraordinarily well. Really well.
The word of mouth on it is just building. It's one of those that too, I mean, I love that cast. I think that like those three performances are so special and they're wonderful. They are more subtle performances more than just like traditional Oscar performances. So I do tend to worry if they can get in for individual nominations, but I would love to see a SAG ensemble nomination just for the three of them. I mean, seeing those three walk up on stage to introduce a clip would just tear your heart out if you've seen the film.
Good luck with that, but okay.
What? I'm just.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
it can happen, but good luck with
it. It could happen. You never know.
They released it in June, which is wonderful counter programming, and sometimes A24 just does a really good job with that. It feels like the farewell. Also a summer release, huge small box office, but never one that was going to grow much bigger than that. And A24 has never even puts movies in more than 1,000 theaters anyway. So it depends. People, critics, everybody is going to have to keep talking about it all season long. And hopefully in a way that's productive and not like in a shaming kind of way, like, don't you forget this, or you're an absolute, loser organization kind of stuff. But no, nobody needs that.
I mean, Erik will be doing this on the podcast.
Constructive and productive with your advocacy without shaming.
Well, I think they did such a smart move of having somebody like Michelle Yeoh at almost every festival and having at least a representative of the film throughout their entirety, and also the way that they ran Fraser's campaign and Paul throughout it. So I expect them to be there at the festivals that we'll be at, and I expect a presence of some kind at Telluride or at definitely at Toronto as well too. Special
A24.
Yeah, for this film. Yeah, I expect
for this film. It's already out.
Yeah. Well, no, but they it doesn't matter. They could have special conversations or somebody to come program or
that's
award.
Different.
You know what I mean? Yeah, having a presence. That's what you're talking about. It doesn't have to just be about having the film.
Their fall presence is going to be Zone of Interest and Priscilla and other stuff.
Yeah. You know what? I understand that, but also I was saying the exact same thing about Everything Everywhere All at Once, and so were you at this time last year. We're like, oh, they're gonna have all these films. How are they gonna? And we'll forget about that multiverse movie. And so I just think that a movie that literally it's got so few detractors, and it will be on so many's. It's the best film of the year so far. Period. End of story. Like it's gonna be tough, I think, for.
You mean all those halfway awards, stuff like that?
Yeah, halfway things that you present on Twitter and stuff like that. But I also just think too that when people do their articles, this will be the number one film that people talk about at the halfway point of the year.
But that's what I'm saying.
It carries on. You know what I mean?
The word of mouth has to be carried throughout the year as the fall festivals take up the real estate.
Yeah, and also too, you have to have a strong enough movie to do that, and it's a pretty damn good movie. It's pretty strong.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. I think of maybe a movie that I know Nicole and I had some words about earlier this year. But you could see it across the award spectrum if Amazon brings it back around, and that's Air, Ben Affleck's film. I'm just saying it's a very dad-like movie. And we don't have many of those, it feels like, this year. So
I think you're the I think you're the only person who hasn't forgotten that film exists.
I disagree. I think that it made a good chunk of change at the box office. It's done well.
I don't deny that. I just
yeah.
think it wasn't memorable.
Well, I mean, audiences were memorable to see it over and over again. I think that you also have all those stars. That's a SAG ensemble contender.
$200 million.
I mean, like, it's a SAG ensemble contender. It's got that big, like all those Oscar winners in that group. So it's something you cannot ignore. And
it's a good movie.
And it's a good movie too. I think also of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is another movie that I hope would have a little bit of love throughout the, like, especially in like adapted screenplay, or Rachel McAdams or Kathy Bates. I think it's a really, really good movie. And but it's also too, it's a movie that people had to go and find and discover and everything. Are there any other films that you guys are thinking about? Beau's Afraid? I'm just kidding.
Oh, that have already come out?
Yeah. I am interested in seeing how Theater Camp's going to play when it comes out. If maybe that's a lone screenplay nomination down the road.
It's a July release. It's a very niche audience.
Very niche audience that will also be the ones voting.
I can't wait to see it for like a fourth time. Because
I cannot wait to see it.
Incredible. It's
so excited.
So many people are going to feel very seen when they watch it.
Between that and Bottoms. Between that and Bottoms, they're gonna have like their well, no, I'm just saying between that and Bottoms, people are gonna be like, these movies are me now. You just watch those and they're gonna make them their identities.
Yeah.
So
gosh,
I mean, I would love to hear the words John Wick Chapter 4 in a Best Picture lineup, but that's just not going to happen because that movie's incredible. It is. That's an incredible movie. I mean, why not? Why not have Keanu at the Oscars? I mean, Yamahama. Talk about Father's Day. But no, I mean, anything else that can. I mean, you mentioned Zone of Interest, Erik, the Jonathan Glazer film.
Yeah, that's yes, I think that's a major contender. The Palm winner, Anatomy of a Fall from Neon, their fourth goddamn Palm. What is in the water in Cannes that they're just like drinking the neon bitch juice like every goddamn year? I love it. I love it for them. They have that with a major Best Actress contender in Sandra Hüller. May December from Todd Haynes with Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore. Although Tom Melton is the one that
everybody's talking about.
A lot of conversation was about him, which is fantastic.
Fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah. That'd be great.
But I think that's kind of where it really begins.
It's from the first half of the year. But we have seen some first looks of some things. Like, I don't know if we haven't really talked about it, but the trailer for The Color Purple released the last couple weeks.
I thought it was a great trailer. I saw a lot of people that did not like it at all.
I really like it. I think it's a really good trailer. I also think, like, obviously The Color Purple, just whatever form it's in, is a very moving piece, like novel, movie, musical, whatever. And I think that's a fantastic musical. I think it's a musical that lends itself well to being put to film. And I think that cast is insane. I would not be surprised if that cast showed up in some of the like supporting actor, supporting actress. I think it's going to also get some buzz because of the fact that, like, Halle Bailey is one of the big stars of the summer with The Little Mermaid, and then she's also got a role in it. So I think there's some people who are gonna go watch it for her who maybe would not have otherwise been interested in it. I really have high hopes for The Color Purple. I think it could do super well. Every previous iteration of it has won just about all the awards that it could have in its like separate fields. So
Or be nominated at least.
Or just be nominated because the movie
did not.
No, I'm saying it has won something somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if not the big one.
The musical version is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying like it's won awards somewhere. Like even though it didn't win the Oscar, didn't it win
any Oscars?
I thought it won Globes that year.
Maybe it did, but it didn't win. But I get what you're saying, Nicole.
I'm saying like every version of it has awards to its names. Like the book won awards as well. Even.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing though that can also work against something. Because
it's true.
Pedigrees can be a great benefit or a really big hindrance. You just don't know what the response is going to be. Some people might just push against it, but no, I love the trailer. It spent so much time with young Celie and young Nettie, which I was just like, I almost just want to only watch them because they were incredible.
Yeah, and that's I think the musical in general. I've always felt that if you were doing something cinematically, you could pull that in even more throughout the show because the musical pulls that in quite a bit throughout it. So I think those sequences looked so good. I also think the costume design on that looked amazing. Obviously,
SAG Ensemble. This is the movie we're talking.
Yeah, there's the movie.
I don't know. I wasn't really blown away by the trailer. I mean, I get that it's a very beloved musical. I know also too. There's just something about it. It wasn't the greatest first look for me. Also, it's difference between being on the stage and being in the film. So like Fantasia carrying this movie, I'm a little worried about that. So I know she won the Tony and everything. It's just totally different. I know that there will be some people, I'm not saying this as myself, there'll also be some people that they really do like that original film. They will ultimately unjustly compare those two films. So, and I don't think that that's right. And then, you're already seeing it right now with Indiana Jones and how people are unjustly, I think, comparing this new one to Spielberg and saying it doesn't have that Spielberg magic. It doesn't have this, or this. And I think that that's not fair to Mangold. I don't think it would be this fair to this film, but I also think too, musicals have not done particularly well and have not won a Best Picture since Chicago. And so it's very tough for musicals to get across the threshold and universally beloved by the Academy. I do think the lineup of 10 helps it for sure, because if it was a staggered lineup, I would not be confident at all in there. But if it is a hit, which I think it definitely could be a hit, especially because it'll be played around the holidays. Then I think that's a benefit for it. I pray to God though that the Academy has evolved since last season, especially after The Woman King and Till. But I don't trust them either when it comes to off the heels of that. So, but it is a very beloved property. It's an amazing book. And so a trailer does not always represent a film. And so I'm still looking forward to it. I know that Warner Brothers has an enormous slate this year with this, obviously Barbie, and then of course Dune 2, which is going to be another. I expect Dune to do exactly what the first one did, tech wise. Maybe if it because roles are expanded now, maybe it does land an acting nom, or at least get because we've heard of Rebecca Ferguson's role has been expanded, and obviously Zendaya's, and then Florence Pugh, but then there's the Timmy of it all as well. It just depends on the season. And then there's also this guy named Austin Butler. That's the
second Oscar nomination incoming.
Incoming, but then also too, it's the culmination of this first big part. It'll have its finality, even though obviously they were going to probably want to continue it. So we'll see how that goes.
Maybe they won't mess up and not nominate Denis again. Maybe they'll be I do need to write his name down.
It's one of those we'll get to it, and then they didn't get to it, and it's like, oh well, now we look stupid for not doing that. But I do have a question for you both, because I know we're in the we're right on the eve of Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I think that they're the two biggest box office mysteries because of the fact that their trackings are a little bit, they're not like $100 million trackings. They're kind of very conservative and low for both of them. Barbie, I think, is like 50-55, and Oppenheimer's like 35-40 or something like that. And I think those are the projections. Does the box office need to be big for both of these two to make it in there, or are they going to just still be big players? You think? I think Oppenheimer doesn't need the big box office play because it's Universal and it's Nolan and they're going to push it regardless. I think the same could be made for Barbie, but because they have Color Purple and Dune, it maybe needs to overperform a little bit more. But I think they're kind of on the same playing ground. Like, I don't think box office is going to hurt them, because then those could be two movies that maybe push, if they're great and reviewed highly, could push a Past Lives out of the way or a Spider-Verse out of the way, because those could be the two films that we think about from the first half of the year, right?
I think maybe what they need is either box office or particularly good reviews.
Yeah.
Not that I expect that either one of them is going to get bad reviews, but if one of them does happen to really not do well, then I think that would be notable.
Yeah. Like if Nolan gets Tenet reviews again, or
exactly,
or if Barbie gets,
and Tenet word of mouth, like if people just don't like it, then that's a problem.
Yeah, but also if like Barbie, I mean, it's tough to say this, but like if people compare it to other films and it doesn't hit, you know what I mean? Like people do that stuff, and I hate that. But
the thing with Barbie though is they are already, a month out from release, killing the marketing game.
Yeah,
that piece that they released of Margot Robbie showing like everyone around the Barbie Dream House, incredible. They've already got like pop-up stuff going on. I think they've got brand collaborations coming.
Yeah, they have like 6 pop-up spots for the press tour and everything.
Yep. So I think that, and it's interesting. I'm seeing like on my TikTok all these like teen girls, women in their 20s being like, oh my God, it's Barbie summer. I can't wait to go see this movie. So I think Barbie really does have an audience who is going to get at the box office. I also think Barbie is the kind of movie that people will see multiple times. If it's anything like we think it is based on trailers. Whereas I don't know what the like rewatchability of an Oppenheimer will be.
I think the thing about Oppenheimer that it has over, and that's why Tom Cruise has been fighting evidently behind the scenes, is those exclusive IMAX screens, but also the idea of that like this is event, like because it's such on like these special, IMAX prints and things of that nature. It has its draw and its interest as well. Like I've already been looking at different areas for both. Well, I've only been looking at Oppenheimer because Barbie hasn't released any tickets yet. But I expect it when that happens, the floodgates to be left open. But those IMAX screenings are big, and I remember us talking about that on the summer movie draft, and it means that you have the event of the year. And I mean, I think Universal's playing the film a little bit closer to the chest than probably no one would want. They're not building it nearly as buzz. A lot of potential, like kind of doing what Nope did. Doing what Nope did last year, which
you can't do crossover marketing with Oppenheimer the way that you can with Barbie. I mean,
how do you market the atomic bomb? What are you gonna bomb somewhere? Like,
I mean. I saw somebody had like a, how like they have those AMC popcorn buckets where it's like it's Thor's hammer and whatnot. Someone made a mock-up of the bomb that AMC would sell that, and I was like, man, I would buy that.
I don't know. Universal just has to hope and pray that the movie isn't a bomb, because everything will just be writing itself. But I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic both of those titles box office wise, but I do think that a successful and healthy box office has to be a component for them, especially as a summer release. Well, I mean, way that maybe others don't need to be. West Side Story was a huge box office failure at Christmas time, but it was Steven Spielberg. The Color Purple probably needs to be, modestly do well.
Different audience.
But, all of these other films that we're talking about have established directors with Oscar nominations already under their belt.
Yeah.
And obviously Blitz Bezawul does not.
Yeah.
So I think it will take someone like Spielberg to really stump for him and for the movie during the season, because it's probably not going to do festivals. It's not a festival type of movie, but Color Purple, but it might show up as special screenings and stuff like that.
Maybe like I don't know, maybe it could be like an AFI closer, something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean that would make sense to do something like that.
Like one screening to build the buzz for 2 months or whatever, or a month or whatever it is. I mean, that is the thing, is that with Color Purple, Dune 2, and Barbie, that's 3 films for Warner Brothers, at least in your last top 10, Eric. I mean, that's it's very rare that a studio gets 3 in, and so I think that box office, it might matter. I mean, also too, Greta and Denis, there are known quantities within the Academy. That might be a knock against the Color Purple a little bit, but then also
it's insane that I have 3 Warner Brothers movies in the top 10. It's ridiculous.
I mean, obviously, another film that we have to talk about, and the slate that we have to talk about, is Netflix, real quick, if we want to. I mean, obviously, Bradley Cooper's quest for an Oscar continues with Maestro this year. At least multiple nominations. I mean, he's got the photo out. This is what you're supposed to do if you're a Best Actor winner. You got to have that photo out at least 6 months before even your movie comes out. He's got like a full year, right? He had like 4 photos, and he's
the Dolby stage is his Mordor, and he's just like trying so fucking hard to get up those steps.
Is he Gollum though?
Perform.
Is he Gollum though? Like when he gets it, does he incinerate in the end? You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like yeah,
he does. Yeah.
Because
the last we'll ever see of him.
Like 4 more nominations. He already has 9.
Yeah, he'll be in PTA status.
He will be in that era, which, whoo.
Well, that's assuming that he gets nominated for director, because he didn't.
I'm just saying the potential is there, and not necessarily what's going to happen.
Yes, no, for sure.
He was absolutely robbed for A Star Is Born.
Correct, because Adam McKay got nominated for Vice, so that checks out.
And it was a phenomenal dictatorial debut.
Movie. A dictatorial film. All right. Well,
oops. That was a Freudian slip.
But yeah, I know that there's been some already early screenings, and I know we know some.
A lot of them, actually.
A lot of them, different cuts.
Different cuts, different coasts.
Yeah. So there's some people have really liked it. Some people have been a little bit on it. It'll be interesting. I expect that at the early festivals. I expect to see it at the Telluride, Toronto for sure. It'll probably start in Venice. But also Netflix, they have, they have May, December. You mentioned that. They have The Killer, which is David Fincher's new film. That's that movie comes out.
That just screened recently as well.
Yeah. And you as Eric takes a sip, like he's got tea on it.
No, I'm very cautious about
Fincher
screening stuff, especially when we know there's multiple cuts, and also too understanding what multiple edits and reshoots mean for a film, because sometimes people automatically want to assume that it's because it's bad, which is not always the case.
They might just have 2 endings. One might be longer, one might be shorter.
Sometimes scheduling just happens that you don't get pickups that you need to get.
Yeah.
I mean, this just happened with Killers of the Flower Moon, where there was a few very small non-star reshoots, pickups that happened before the Cannes debut. And that spawned all kinds of people with all kinds of things to say. It just doesn't mean anything unless it does. But you don't know yet.
But Fassbender back in the race, that would be nice. Tilda, obviously. Fincher.
Yeah, I'm hearing is very, 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 very violent.
Yes, and that's what I love to hear for
And like 2 hours, 40 minutes, I
Hell
think.
yes, please.
What
Which I know that a lot of people will be very happy that that's more like return to form for Fincher after like Mank, but I'm also just very curious as a big fan. Like, he's such a great director, and but it, I know a lot of people really like his movies. Like Gone Girl and Girl Dragged Tattoo, Social Network. He's made some pretty good movies. But then also there's Rustin and Shirley.
Maybe.
On those, we never know.
Maybe
on both.
Maybe on Shirley.
Maybe on Shirley. We never know. I mean, that's the thing, is that we thought Shirley was coming out last year. Thought it might come out this year.
Rustin the same. Rustin's definitely coming out this year. Shirley is up in the air.
Well, no, Up in the Air was 2010.
Stop it.
But
get out of here.
Yeah. They also have Naiad.
They have Naiad. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's Annette Bening's quest to win an Oscar as well.
Yes, but I don't know. Diana Naiad is a little.
Somebody look out for Hilary Swank, who's coming out with a movie that she just made 5 minutes ago. But no, they have a big slate as always. I mean, they also have they'll have the Wes Anderson shorts, so that's probably going to be in competition for the short films as well. They also will pick up things along the way. You look at A24. You mentioned Priscilla earlier. I mean, there's The Iron Claw. If that comes out, that, I'm just saying it right now, that will be a movie that I will champion if it's very good, because I think Sean Durkin's a lot like Jonathan Glazer. He is primed to have a big bump up in his career. If you know that story about the Von Erichs, that's a very tragic story and a very interesting story.
It's definitely one of those things that on paper you're like, why would anybody make a movie of this? This is crazy. And then it happens, and
it's very Foxcatcher.
Then it's like, oh, that's how you do it.
And Durkin's made Martha, Marcy May, Marlene, and The Nest, which are two fantastic films. And great, and he gets also really great performances. If you've never seen The Nest, Carrie Coon, oh my god, amazing.
That movie is incredible, and she is the greatest thing in the world.
The way she's smoking.
They also have Civil War, the Alex Garland.
They do.
So there's all of these kind of directors that have been working at a certain level. The Durkin, Garland, Glazer, and
Garland's on probation for me though, for men. So that's
they're just going to pretend that didn't happen. But they're all kind of existing in the same world where it seems like only a matter of time before they have like an Oscar breakthrough, like a real awards breakthrough. It might not all happen in the same year, but it's the kind of thing where you can those are tea leaves that we can read because they happen all the time.
Yeah. I think also we'll start wrapping it up here soon, but I mean, I am curious about challengers. Obviously, Luca. I mean, we all saw the photo this week. We all wanted Zendaya to get out of the way.
Oh my God.
I am certainly curious about challengers.
Yeah. I will ask Mike Feist about it next month.
Oh, when you see him?
After Brokeback.
No, during the middle of the performance. How's challengers?
Middle of it.
Can I finish this? No, I need a no. I gotta write an article right now.
Oh my God.
Then there's the bike riders, Mike Nichols or Jeff Nichols. Mike Nichols. Jeff Nichols' new film.
Mike Nichols film.
I mean, Tom Hardy and Austin Butler and Jodie Comer, right? What a cast.
Tony Award winner Jodie Comer, you mean?
Yeah.
Halfway to an EGOT, Jodie Comer, please.
Halfway to an EGOT. I'm almost halfway to an EGOT. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a thing.
Yeah, it is. When you got two of them, you're halfway there.
Three is you. Then we
Three's
can.
Not halfway. That's 3/4 of the way.
Like whatever. Who cares?
She just needs to do like an audio book, and then she's there. So like,
yeah, I mean, she's just got to win for the bike riders, and we're done. I mean, she should have been nominated for the last duel, but that's beside the point.
She should have.
I mean, obviously, I think the one challenger to Spider-Verse is How Do You Live, which is the Hayao Miyazaki film that could come out. It's supposed to be coming out in Japan next month. Then I wonder if it'll make a debut at something like Toronto, which kind of makes sense for it. That obviously is Miyazaki's last film. Very highly anticipated. We'll be interested to see the sort of reviews. We won't have any new posters or trailers because Studio Ghibli and G Kids have basically said you're not getting anything else, which is kind of great, and I love it. I love the defiant studio like that, where they're just like, nope. Erik, you mentioned Apple. They have a movie inspired by your hero, Napoleon.
You. He wasn't even that short.
Yeah, he was.
He was Tom Cruise's height, apparently.
Yeah, which is obviously short, but it's not as short as me.
Joaquin Phoenix playing the titular Napoleon. Is it Vanessa Kirby?
Yeah, it was Jodie Comer, and
it was Jodie Comer. Shit, there went around, but then she did the backriders instead. So look forward to that. Poor Things.
Yeah, you can never count out Searchlight. They are
Yorgos
so fantastic at this. They also have Strangers, clearly my most anticipated movie of the year, without question.
What is Strangers? If for all of our people that don't know about Strangers,
it is from Andrew Hay that did Weekend, and it has Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell, and Hot Priest. So I will be seated because I won't be able to stand up.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that film as well, as Erik picks the drool up off of the floor.
I cannot wait to make a fool of myself if that shows up at Telluride.
He's just gonna be pushing people out of the way. Just get out of the way. Finally, we'll see Next Goal Wins just flop and get out of the way, because this movie has been delayed for like 9 years. We'll also see Flint Strong from MGM. Expect good things from that. Long Day's Journey into Night. That's another MGM film that could be Jessica Lange's big third Oscar win campaign kind of thing. Ferrari, Michael Mann, Adam Driver.
Oh yeah.
Cars Go Vroom Vroom. Love to see it.
I love a Vroom Vroom movie.
Yeah.
I that's definitely going to be at Venice. Someone like I'm forgetting who he was, but he tweeted this like some Italian guy. I feel so stupid for even saying that because I just don't remember who it was. But he tweeted that it's going to be at the festival and then had to delete it later. So it's going to be
but
not shocking, but
I mean, it's not shocking. Obviously, like Adam Driver waving the green flag at the Indy 500 this year was like, oh, that movie's coming out and it's playing at festivals. So,
and that one picture of him with that short salt and pepper hair, excuse me, please.
Yeah, like the I need crime. Steve, we talked about Apple potentially Blitz if McQueen has the film ready on time. That's
please. I need it.
Yeah, I need Steve McQueen with Saoirse Ronan. That would be me and Nicole. We're all ready for that movie. Priscilla, and I believe that's about it. Any other films I didn't mention, Erik? Anything else?
Saltburn.
That's right. Saltburn.
Yeah.
Amazon.
I'm sitting here like Saltburn.
Yeah. Amazon's actually got a lot. They have a lot of stuff.
It's only instead of sending me advent calendars, actually push their films this year, please. Because I wasn't a big a fan as many for Promising Young Woman, but I've read about Saltburn and this movie. I mean, it sounds good, and it's
I'm so into it. Also, there's been some screenings of that, so you have a little bit of an idea of like
Jacob Elordi and Barry Keoghan and
Jacob. Oh my lordy!
Good lordy!
Also, listen, Emerald Fennell needs a win right now after everything that has occurred with Bad Cinderella.
Well, she's got this in Barbie, so she's gonna. She has a big
game. So she needs some good in her life.
There was one movie we didn't mention. It's a movie that a lot of people are talking about. Would be interested to see how it plays. That's The Holdovers.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Yeah. There's no way that's not going to be a player.
that's a big player. Also, I mean, the Alexander Payne of it all, the controversies behind there, that'll be interesting because the movie has been labeled as a big crowd pleaser, but also at the same token, though, and him working with Giamatti, so it's very much a sideways reunion. But at the same token, though, there's been a lot of controversy with Alexander Payne, so we'll see if that matters or not for certain people.
I doubt it. 100% Telluride premiere, guarantee it.
Yeah,
I would bet life on it.
Yeah. Oh, I want to bet. I want that. Wait, that's on the record now. We bet your life on something.
Let me walk that back a little bit.
I do think that one thing that could end up being a tech player is Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because I think that some of the stuff that we've seen, I mean, obviously that's one that could go either way. I think that's one that will do decent box office. But I'm curious to see. It's a Hunger Games movie, so there should be some pretty impressive hair and makeup in it, because I know there's like a lot of capital scenes. So
yeah, also a movie that you kind of low key have to think about. It'll come out around the end of the year, and it's another thing to put on Warner Brothers slate. Wonka.
I was just going to say, we better not finish this without talking Wonka.
I mean, you think about original song, production design, costumes.
Yep.
I mean, that's just a tech player.
That's Timothy's Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, people love
Olivia Colman's second Oscar.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing would please me more than that.
I mean, if that movie's halfway good, it could. I mean, there's so many people like us that love the Paddington movies. I don't know if a Wonka prequel would get Paul King in the conversation, but it definitely could land itself in tech nominations. And I mean, I'm still upset that Hugh Grant didn't get nominated for Paddington 2, but that's just beside the point. But
maybe Olivia Colman will,
But it does feel like Warner Brothers could dominate literally the production design category with Dune and Barbie and Wonka and The Color Purple. My God, that's just
that.
They want Nolan back. Oh my God, we didn't even talk about that today.
Yeah, where's all that money coming from? Oh, that's right, because they've canceled everything and written down everything as failures.
Well, they did make it.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not coming from their superhero movies, that's for sure. But yeah, those are a lot of the movies that are going to be coming out. We're going to be talking about a lot of them throughout the year, and we're looking forward to a lot of them. We're not going to talk about performances or things because we went too long on this. So you got your little taste for that. Directors, and maybe we'll do that as closing here as we log off. But Nicole, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the internet, and maybe someone you hope gets in the Best Director conversation?
Okay, so when I hope does. All right, well, that's an easy answer. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all the other socials basically at Nicole Ackman 16. And obviously I want to see Greta Gerwig make it into that category, but if not, I also would love to see Sofia Coppola get nominated if Priscilla is as great as I think it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm hoping that she makes a better Elvis movie than the one last year. Got the potential. What? Oh, you're both shaking your heads at me, but
we are shaking.
Good.
It'll be good. Sofia Coppola, it'll be good. Erik Anderson, same stuff. Where can we find you, director you hope to get in the lineup?
Obviously AwardsWatch.com. We have a lot of fun stuff coming with Emmy nomination voting season underway. Tons of interviews last week, more coming this week. And obviously on Twitter at awards_watch. Director that I want to get in would be Celine Song for Past Lives.
Rude. Way to take it from me.
I think probably more than anybody. Even though, I mean, I would say Bradley Cooper, even though he is a certified Swiftie, which is problematic, but he should have gotten in for Stars Born. So give him at least something to hang his hat on.
I want for the record that he said that, Nicole, not me. But he's not wrong.
Thank you, Ryan.
But anyway, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find my work here at awardswatch.com, as well as the playlist and a bunch of other places. One thing Eric forgot to mention is you should go to the website and sign up for our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter already, I know Eric's like, I always forget this.
Forget every time.
Yeah, forget every time. That's what I'm here for. Go there. It's the best, 2 emails you'll get all week. And it's just a great way to be able to get all of our great interviews, the podcasts, reviews, to read Nicole's work, to read Eric's work, to read my work, everybody else's work here, all under one roof. We greatly appreciate it. There's a lot of also FIC stuff and various other things that we get sent there as well too. So it's a good way to get all of AwardsWatch in one stop shop. There's 2 directors I'd love to see get nominated. I have to be that person and be extra and say 2. I know everyone's going to talk about Celine Song. I know that this movie will get released later this year by A24, and I pray to God that Raven Jackson gets a lot of love for All Dirt Rose Tastes of Salt, movie that I really loved out of Sundance and still think is right up there with Song's film as one of the best films of the year. And then Eric just saw it. It's a great movie, and I would love to see some sort of love for Emma Segelman's wonderful film Bottoms, either in an adapted screenplay, or an original screenplay, or best director. I think it's one of the best directed comedies we've had in a long, long time. And that movie is truly balls to the walls insane. And yeah, so I think that's
it's gonna sweep the Galacadorian Awards next year.
Oh, it is so gonna do that. It is so gonna do that. But also Kelly Furman Craig for Are You There, God It's Me, Margaret. Fantastic work there for that film as well. So there we named 5 directors that are female directors. So go on ahead, Academy, nominate them all. Do it. You don't have a choice. You know what I mean? So actually, we named like 6 or 7, which is great. But anyway, next week we are going to be talking about said Asteroid City that Nicole was talking about earlier, and we are going to be talking about our top 5 Wes Anderson films, which could be a lot of the same, or it could be very different. But that's the beauty about talking about Wes Anderson, and it's nice to see that he's got a new film that a lot of people seem to be enjoying. So we will be talking about that next week. Until then, thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.